Not even sure. But yeah, but that's it for the weekend games.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the more notable ones, the West Ham 1-0 to Wolves, or
No, they
under
lost.
1-0 to Wolves was a notable
Yeah.
that was a notable result. As you
Mhm.
said, all the top three teams all seem
Mhm.
to have performed creditably after the international break.
Yeah.
They all won very, very comfortably.
Yeah. And
Arsenal,
thing,
that's a
like
little
you
blip in there. Eh?
yeah. And that's the thing, sometimes coming back after international break, sometimes you have some players with injuries and stuff like that. My biggest shock was why we didn't start I'm sorry, not Emil Smith, Maitland Niles, but I guess that was just the coach maybe trying to balance the team or whatever the case is. But either way, like the top three teams did perform well coming back after the international break, and I guess this showed the reason why they are the top three teams because
Yeah.
are getting clean sheet, beating their opponents by more than 2 goals, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, they all showed their dominance. They all showed the gulf of quality between them and the lower teams in the table. Tottenham also was able to
mhm.
scrape out a last 2-1 over Leeds. They went in 1-0 at the halftime, and Conte, I guess, gave them a rollicking because they came back out and rescued that game, two
Yeah,
goals to one. And so in terms of the results, there's some unexpected ones, but for the most part, I think it was more expected results. Good to see that the new managers have at least gotten performances out of the clubs that they are recently appointed to. Steven Gerrard, um, Eddie Howe, and Dean Smith for Aston Villa. Um, However, the most
when I hear the
noteworthy.
name Dean Smith, the only coach that comes to mind really is Dean Smith, who coached North Carolina, who coached Michael Jordan back in the day.
Yeah,
That's like the Dean Smith. So kind of look at it too. That's like, so whenever I hear that, he gotta be a
your
good
name run
coach.
back to the Jordan days. You get nostalgic.
Yeah, man. Yep.
So for us though, the more significant result would have
Mhm.
been Manchester United's capitulation to
Yeah.
Watford.
Yeah.
Um, I did myself the service by watching out the entirety of the game. I call it a disservice because it was a horrible display. The match itself was a poor match,
Mhm.
and this is on the back of just watching Chelsea dismantle Leicester. So you want some quality football on at the very least as a sort of a response to the pressure that the manager had been suffering over the last few weeks with defeats in Liverpool and Manchester City.
Mhm.
However, the Tinkerman was able to outthink and outmaneuver Ole, which resulted in his sacking, which took place earlier today from all reports. Um, as I said, the match itself was not anything of real consequence. The more consequential events for me in the match would have been perhaps the Harry Maguire receiving his second yellow red card. That certainly turned the tide in the game. Another event that turned the tide in the game, admittedly, would have been his introduction of Donny van de Beek and Anthony Martial for the second half. And I think it's a culmination of all of those factors because Van der Beek, coincidentally enough, I was joking with a friend of ours last night, Garth, and I indicated to him that the most ironic thing about this whole situation is Van der Beek is actually the person who scores the final goal for Ole before he
Yeah.
was sacked.
Yeah. And the same
Isn't
person
that
who
an
don't want
irony?
to play.
2 years now, we have signed this guy.
Uh-huh.
15 minutes he has gotten playing on the field this season. And he's the one that when you bring on in the second half of your final match, the only person to really inspire the entire team. And I think that in itself should have sent a message to Ole, even today when he's sitting down looking over everything and contemplating everything. I am certain he's going to be kicking himself in the butt for not playing Donny a lot more than he did. Just given on that little cameo of an appearance yesterday. But as I said, Ole is gone.
But you don't think maybe Vanderbilt felt in some way too like, well, right now he probably feeling vindicated, but yeah, like yesterday coming on, 15 minutes on the field, scoring a goal, like he feels like, okay, you know what, maybe he felt like this was coming, like he knew, listen, this game is going to be the coach last game.
That is a possibility, but you would think that then the players whom he has supported, because I'll be honest, I'm a Manchester United fan, and I've always stated that I've been very clear in calling out deficiencies within the team whenever they are there. So in fairness, team players that supposed to have stood up for him yesterday were Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, Luke Shaw, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. These are the players that really should have put up their hands yesterday, appreciating how much pressure Ole was under. If they, as we have been hearing, have such a close relationship with the manager, then you would have expected them to put in a little bit more of a gutsy performance, wouldn't you? Would you say? Why is it that the guy who has been neglected for the past 18 months or so is the one that brings out the gutsiest performance? That's a bit of an irony there as well, too.
That is true. And then the thing about it too is that well, it's it's funny because a lot of these same guys now will be looking at the interim coach and wondering how they're placed in the team. Well, maybe not a lot of them, but some of them anyway, will be wondering how they place in the team will be because it's a new code, new system. You don't know how long he'll be there for. You don't know what direction. Well, we don't know what direction the management of the team would look like come next season because you guys new coach is just there for this season. It's just gonna last. It's just until the end of the season, right?
Interim, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just until the end of the season. And it doesn't look like they'll bring someone in before the end of the season because, they could bring someone maybe in January, but it looks like he probably might be there until the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't want to predict because this club management, football management has been the worst, I think, in professional football. I'm being brutally honest because Manchester United itself is a brand. It's one of the biggest brands in football. So to be treated with the level of disregard as far as I'm concerned that has been treated with over the last 7-8 years since the departure of Sir Alex is really, really painful to watch as a Manchester United supporter, but it's also a case study in how not to manage a football club.
But those guys these guys are looking at this as a brand, like, okay, like it's not being just one of the biggest brand in football, it's one of the biggest sporting brand. It's like Lakers, Yankees, Man United.
Exactly.
Those are brands. Them is the brands that you hear about. Like you might not hear about all the others, Miami Heat, even though they won a few. New York Knicks, even though they haven't won a lot of championships, but they're again, it's a brand. They are brands, and people. I just think that they didn't understand, or they don't still understand how important football is to the English community. Whereby to them they think that, oh well, we could do this and we could do that, but they don't realize like football is a religion. It's
in some instances, yes.
It's a queen in football. So it's that and that is how a lot it is, and a lot of and those guys don't. And maybe they're just being disrespectful to the brand, and it's almost like the Conkeys in Arsenal, which they are trying to change that look, but they have done so much that people don't even trust them to improve on the brand. Right now, they could leave the club and it doesn't really matter, even though the club is in a better space than it was 3 months ago. They could leave the club and it wouldn't matter. People just be like, okay, yeah, they're gone, But I don't know. things will turn around because you guys had to maybe reach what bottom almost like where Barcelona is right now in the sense of you know, not in so much management because they don't have a lot of money, but in the sense of performance, sitting in the middle of the table in Spanish Premier League, you know,
Yeah.
in La Liga. So it's almost the same thing with Manu. So I don't know though. Because you looked online yesterday, you saw a lot of well, even today, you see a lot of persons like Trinitan and stuff like that. But um, what do you expect it to be, say, the end of January? Where do you expect to be in the table at the end of January? Where do you expect the team to to be the end of January? Because I'm
A
not
lot
even
of
going to
that,
the end of the season.
yeah, a lot of that depends on the quality of interim manager that they get between now. I do not think Michael Carrick is the answer, and I think that he will struggle as Ole struggled before him, because I don't get the impression that they did anything different, or they're going to do it. He's going to do anything different than Ole, given the fact that he was one of his trusted assistants for the past 3 years.
Mhm.
Um, if they do happen to get a quality interim, somebody like Laurent Blanc, who's a name that's been mentioned out there, um, this gentleman from Ralph Ragnick, but he wants a long term and more, as well as to be considered for a more senior role. But what Manchester United needs right now is a footballing direction. So I think along with appointing a manager, their focus has to be getting the right people in place to deal with football matters, because too much time and money and resources is being spent and expended on the commercial aspect of things. We are going to sell shirts. We are the biggest club in England, and as we've argued probably in the world. We are going to sell jerseys. We are going to bring in match day revenues. You're going to have fans who are going to be craving for Cristiano Ronaldo sightings and pay ridiculous money to go and see him. However, that needs to be translated now back onto the field, because the aura that used to travel with the team because of the brand and the quality of football and the dominance that they had at a period of time for a very, very long while in the EPL and in Europe, that has completely evaporated. And where I may disagree with some of the other fans and everything else, is that I think that they need to move away, at least temporarily, until they find the right person to institute what they keep referring to as the United Way. It is obvious that the United Way, no one has had the ability to translate that into quality football or relevant football on the field during this, because football evolves, as with everything else. It goes in cycles. So it is not my expectation that United would have remained dominant all the time. However, if you recognize that something isn't working and you've tried it in different methods, in different shapes and forms, and you realize it's not working, then maybe it's time to put that script down and pick up another one, just to ensure that you remain relevant in the short term, with the intention of catching back yourself long term. But I think they need a proper director of football, director of sport, however they want to be. This guy, John Murtaugh, is just deputy, or was Ed Woodward's former deputy. Again, a very commercially oriented guy. Darren Fletcher was brought in there to assist with the academy, but he doesn't have real coaching experience or senior management experience at any football club. So he's learning on the job as well. So I just don't get, I'm not filled with confidence. For example, if you were to throw some of the names that seem to be prioritizing their manager search right now, Zinedine Zidane is apparently at the top of Joel Glazer's list. I could see why Zinedine Zidane would be at Joel Glazer's top of the list, because if Joel is partially familiar with anything historic as it relates to football, or follows anything with football, he would be aware that Zidane was a star for France and for for Real Madrid, and he has won 3-4 Champions League with Real Madrid, right? But there are caveats to that. When Zidane came in at Real Madrid, he inherited he inherited Galacticos. And he inherited Galacticos after being trained by a tactician like Carlo Ancelotti, who's currently right now playing his trade there again. Now, that didn't require Zidane to do anything spectacular. You have the players accustomed to playing in a system after being trained by a proper tactician for many years. Yes, you were not getting the results you wanted, but that's because you were playing against a rampant Barcelona, perhaps one of the most powerful Barcelona sides that we have seen in the last 3-4 decades. Yes? So, and on top of that, he does not speak English. You know, he's not as multilingual as some of the other coaches around, which means that he will struggle. So to bring in Zidane, for example, based on his resume, may seem like the best decision, and based on his profile for somebody like Joel Glazer. But I don't think Manchester United needs a Zidane right now. Yes, I think he may be able to relate to people like Ronaldo, Varane, maybe even Pogba, because he's trained with Ronaldo and Varane before. He's played with them before. But is that going to be enough to make us relevant in the Premier League and give us a fighting chance in the Champions League? You know, I don't think we have that kind of additional quality, let's say, of Real Madrid of old. So I'm not sold on how these guys are going about their business from an administrative level. And I think, yes, Ole is a symptom of a bigger problem. And I think along with the club trying to manage this managerial change, they need to really sit down, be honest with themselves, and correct the footballing gap between them and the other elite clubs in England and then the world. I don't know what your thoughts are on what I just said.
I agree with you because bringing in Zidane, even if he does decide to come still, you know, because remember we were hearing yesterday that he didn't have any interest, or they didn't even have any interest in him, and then you hear his name being mentioned. But I agree with you because you won't get immediate results. I mean, as I say, it's not like he's inheriting a club that is world class, like for whatever reason, like he's inheriting somebody like Liverpool, Chelsea, you know, one of those teams, Man City, you know, whereby, you know, you have a top class team with top class players, and for whatever reason, you got rid of the manager. So it's just to get somebody in who could manage these players now, versus getting in a coach who would be able to, a lot of it I think now is going to be with getting them in a system that would work for all the players around, because maybe all the players couldn't fit in whatever system Ole had, or they didn't play within whatever system he was trying to get them to do. So now we're getting a system where all the guys could work around, and you know, you could have one unit. I don't think that would happen between now and the end of the season. I think what might be best is for the owners, the management team, to probably look to see if there are any available coaches, top quality coaches around in Europe coming on to the end of the season, because we never know. Like somebody might get fired. It's almost inevitable that some top team will hear like they decided to get rid of the coach, or the coach, like in Zidane case, whereby he just decided to step down, you know. So that might be an opening. I don't see what his name is, the special one coming back from Roma to coach.
Oh, no.
To coach Man U. You know, even and he started pretty well at Roma to speak about them a little bit, and he got a little bit rough because, you know, after a while the aura runs out, you know, and you know, it comes down to playing football, and it's almost like with getting Cristiano Ronaldo. He came over, he sold 1 million shirts in about half an hour, and then 3 weeks, it's it just come back now to playing football. It's all about what happened on the field. Same thing with Messi. It took Messi a while to get into his groove. You know, they had all kind of things showing him going over to France and leaving Barcelona and all these big hype and selling like 30 million shirts or whatever the case is, closing down factories. But after a while, it comes back down to playing football because that's what you're there for, playing football. So we don't, I don't see it. It's almost like when, even though I was saying, okay, get rid of Arteta, but I myself knew that even if we had bring in whoever, maybe we're looking at Conte, whoever we were trying to get, it still would have been the same thing for Arsenal because getting rid of a coach don't automatically make an immediate winner. As you was pointing out, it does not make the team immediately just start to win because there's so much underlying factors why the coach who you got rid of had to be got rid of. Because sometimes it's not just the coach, it's the system, it's the players, it's the group of players together, it's the little clicks. You hear that even at Arsenal, where they had little clicks whereby when we got rid of Wenger, whereby you had some guys pushing against that, and when we got rid of the guy afterward, forget his name now, who's coaching.
Emery?
Yeah, Emery. Yeah, Emery. So it's almost the same thing. So it's a bunch of little things, and as I said, I'm willing to give Arteta 2 years, and I think whoever you guys are gonna have to give them at least 2 years or so. Depending if they're able to get players so they want to get. But just it's still a little bit different for you guys because you have Cristiano Ronaldo, and if you could build a team around him, even though he's reached up there in age, but if you build a team around him, I find out it could be really well without expecting, because you realize how they got knocked out of World Cup qualifiers, so now they have to pay qualifiers to get in, and then the Portuguese
coach resigned.
Yeah, the Portuguese footballers now, well, not footballers, the fans now, they're actually blaming him when he's the reason why Portugal is recognized as a football, a football.
Yeah, once again, a powerhouse in Europe.
Yeah,
once again,
yeah.
He won them the Euros. He won them the Euros a few years ago.
Yep, 2 seasons back.
Which was inconceivable even on the glory days of guys like Louis Figo and stuff like that. So
because he basically won the Euros for them, and they just had two big names. I think it was just him and Danny, who used to play for Man U at the same time too. And it was just him, and he didn't play the final because he got injured. But he was the reason why they reached the final, and he was the reason why they won. So it's inconceivable to see that he can't do it all, but I guess because of a player of his stature and stuff like that. I mean, almost an automatic goal scorer. You put them in a bracket whereby they can't do no wrong, and when they do wrong, you vilify them and stuff like that.
Well, I think it's a mixed bag. I think when we got him, it was a poison chalice. I knew I didn't want City to get him. That's for sure. City got him. Had City gotten him, we would have given that would have given them the title. There would have been no doubts about it. They would have ran away with the title this season because that's just a bit too much firepower to already put with what they already have in terms of a very good team. But Ole, I think, was trying to develop a certain style of play in terms of pressing from the front and taking it to the bigger teams. But Cristiano is not going to give you that work ethic. Jadon Sancho was brought in to give you a bit more width, but with Cristiano there, that's a position on the field now that's no longer available. So Sancho has to be swapped with Mason Greenwood and the likes of Anthony Martial, for example, and stuff like that. So there's a number of different factors that I think he has interfered with the way Ole wanted to play. So in the first few games, it was all well and good because everybody's happy with the signings. You've got the best defender arguably in the world. You've got one of the best defenders in the world. You've got arguably one of the traditional greatest in Cristiano Ronaldo. You got a target that you were supposed to have been getting. You're trying to get around for 2-3 years in Sancho. And when you get all this now, after bringing to the team to a point and have to fit these pieces in to make sure that the team functions at the same level of efficiency and they don't have the same characteristics as the guys you have on the ground, there's going to be the need for some level of reconstituting. And I did not think that Ole set himself up properly for that at all this season. And that was part of the reason why he also could not, replicate the success of previous seasons. So he's been sacked. There's going to be a bit of speculation now as to who will replace him, as you said, interim and then long term. I wish him all the best. He's a legend, obviously, both as a player and even for the good that he's done as a coach for the time that he was here. He brought back a little bit of pride, a little bit of our culture. So there's no disrespect. I do think he overstayed his welcome. And maybe that's why there's a bit of a bitterness toward him by some members of the fan base. But there's always going to be respect, and he will always be welcomed back into the annals of Old Trafford. I'm certain with open arms and with eager anticipation. My suggestion remains that he should have been appointed as the director of football or director of sport, and then allow him the opportunity, seeing that you started the groundwork of building the team, allow him the opportunity now to select a coach that he thinks, or manager that he thinks would be able to carry us to the next step. But I believe the amount of pressure that he was under over the last few weeks, months, would have now basically put that idea to rest, because for him, as much as he may want to be involved, I think there's a little bit of a tarnishing of his reputation to a certain extent. And so it's going to be see how he recovers. Interesting to see how he recovers personally and how the club moves on.
So now let's move on cricket.
I wanted to touch that because there's a lot there. I noticed you're following up on a lot of cricket this weekend. What's been going on?
Okay, well, West Indies started. Well, yeah, no, let me go back a little further. The West Indies women is in Zimbabwe for the World Cup qualifiers for Women T20 World Cup. So they're in Zimbabwe. Their first match is on 23rd. They played against Thailand, which would have been Friday for us, Saturday for them, I think. They played against, or Friday or Thursday, they played against Thailand, beat them by 151 runs.
Ooh.
I was like, wow, yeah. But then the tournament started today, and Thailand beat Sri Lanka, which is not Sri Lanka, beat Zimbabwe, host country Zimbabwe. So that now turns up everything, because now you had an underdog, complete underdog, beaten, at least a pretty decent, not they're the best team, but they're host nation. So obviously, they're a good enough team. And then you have the West Indies men starting this morning, I should say early this morning, Sunday, started the first test versus Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka. Well, that was something. Young Jeremy Salazano, I guess that's his, Jeremy, he's batsman out of Trinidad. I think he's about 20, 21. Yeah, because he played last World Cup, under 19 last World Cup. He got hit. He was feeling in silly, because that's where they put the rookies. And he got hit on his helmet, back of his helmet, concussion. So he was taken off his stretcher, but they say he's doing okay. I was actually wondering about why he was actually in the 11 in the first place, especially like we have Hope and stuff like that. But it so happened now that Hope actually will be his substitute. But wish him all the best, because in your first game to get hit like that, I mean, he was out for a while, so wish him all the best. The game will continue for folks who are listening now. I think the game starts at 12:30 our time. And
I see Karunuratne, the captain. They can't seem to get him out.
No, man, this guy is Jesus. That's the thing. It seems like, well, it happens. It happens in India, it happens in Pakistan, so most likely it will happen there too. The wickets are low, they're slow, they turn a lot, they're batting wickets, and if you cannot get them guys out, they will just bat and most likely declare. I actually think that they're going to score at least maybe a 460, 470 and then declare on us. Maybe like 460 for 7 or something and then declare. And then we know going to have to go in and bat for 3 days. end up losing the match because I really don't think we have the firepower. I don't know why Watch didn't play either. Why we didn't try to go with at least two seamers,
Pacers, yeah.
two pacers, two genuine spin bowlers, or one genuine spin bowler. And because we have about three guys who could spin in the team already anyway. The captain, Blackwood, if he's got, yeah, the captain Blackwood and Chase. Plus you have the main spinner, which is Cornwall. So, but I don't know. Watch didn't play. Started Gabriel, we have Holder, and they weren't able to make an inroad. So it's what, 273 or 267 for free, with Chase picking up two and Gabriel picking up one. But these guys are just, they're just comfortable on the home soil. And Sri Lanka's are just comfortable on the home soil, and nothing we do seemed to be working. And we didn't even have like drop catches or anything like that. It was just proper bats, proper batting, and they just basically outplayed us. But it's test match, so we should all know that is how test match cricket go. When you get in, you stay. When you get in,
how are they scoring? Are they scoring at an impressive clip?
Rate, you know, because they're scoring almost like a 3 runs and over. They're like at 2 points. 1 point just before they were averaging about 2.7, 2.5, 2.6. Okay. And then coming on to the end of the day, they just up that to a little bit over 3. They just up that 1 way to a little bit over 3. But I guess I just started getting comfortable and was like, let's listen. 2 things could either happen. We had out before the end, we had to lose a wicket, or we're gonna score ones. And in the last
one was on a century, one was on a half century, so they could afford to at least take a little bit more risk.
So yeah, you can afford that because the guy was like 70 plus ones, the other guy was 100 and something, so you can afford that. You know, they just basically just outplayed West Indies.
Can bowlers credit, I realize that most of them have very good bowling figures in terms of economy. None of them, only Gabriel give up a lot in terms of 4.66. Everybody else is 3.5 and under.
Yeah.
Even Jason Holder, his 14 overs went on a clip of 1.7 runs, 1.07 runs and over, which is basically 1 run and over, which isn't bad bowling at all. Yeah.
No, that's not bad. And that's the thing, because even, checking in with the bowlers, you realize that even when they took the new ball at the end of the 80th over, the captain bowled Gabriel, and then he just switched back to his star bowlers. He bowled Gabriel, and I think like maybe that's 5 ones or something that came off the over, and he just switched back because I guess you realize to really get to hand a better economy, keep the 1 weight slow, is just sticking with your bowlers, and maybe that's the reason why they decided to actually just play one out and out fast bowler and then have Holder as a second option. But I don't know. But I guess they wouldn't know what they're doing. But I want to play it like that.
Is it because
really, but economy weight is ridiculous amongst the spinners.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit questionable as well. I know that you want to play to the strengths of the conditions and everything else, but you also have to accept where your strengths are. And somebody with the experience of Roach would have made a huge difference there.
And they showed it yesterday too, because when they were showing the stats yesterday before the game started, they pointed out that Roach had the most wicket among fast bowlers against Sri Lanka. So I was like, so if it was one person was expecting them to play, was him, but they didn't.
Well, let's see how they trudge on. First day doesn't look very encouraging, but at the same time, Sri Lanka hasn't run away with it as well. It's still, within competition stage. You just have to put in the work tomorrow and try and remove those 2 batsmen.
If you're able to even get 3 wickets before lunch, you are, because it's and that's how it almost seems to be. Because looking back at Sri Lanka previous matches, they do that really well. It seems like they actually have the most centuries per opening stand than any other team. They have the most. Like for the year, I think they were looking back over the past 2 or 3 years, something like that. They have the most. They got like 13 centuries per opening stand. When West Indies had 1, South Africa had 1, but the closest to them was India with 7. and they had 13, so they almost doubled everyone else. So it was
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
part of the course. So it's pretty much like part of the course for how the team operates. The middle order is that as you were, like when we got first wicket, like the second and third was a too short after, but then the guys just set it back down and just started batting with the head. But I think if we had to get two quick wickets in the morning session, they'll be all right. I will, and again, it's test cricket. It's just about that's what it is. It's not fast cricket all the time. It's just that you just have to play to your strength and just play hard and play long. Be prepared to either bowl long length, bowl a long time, or bat a long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when or both, because if you get in, you put in a good set, you could put in a good batting performance, let's say over day two, day three, then
Mm.
it makes your job a little bit easier. Day four, day five, because you could attack them with a little bit more. You know, you have some runs in the bag, maybe a little lead, hopefully. You can attack them a little bit more vicious,
Yep.
for the lack of a better expression, and
Yep.
put them on the back foot, knowing that you have a bit of loose runs. However, if you let them now bundle you out too quickly, then you're literally going to be from day three, four trying to play for a draw, which
Exactly.
is extremely difficult given the
Exactly.
fact that you don't have the bowling to
Mm-hmm.
bowl them out, you know?
Correct.
So,
Because now you have to bowl them out twice, so you have to get 20 wickets.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
possible.
yeah.
You know.
So let's see how they go.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of other cricketing news, I realize India recovered from their humiliation in the World T20, and they won a clean sweep against New Zealand in terms of T20s today, being
Yeah,
the
I
third.
yeah, I don't even know why. I didn't honestly I didn't expect that result. When New Zealand lost the first match, I was like, okay, that's man, it's the first match they played in India anyway, you know. But then to lose game two and game three, get three straight. I mean, and they were nowhere close to being to being competitive in the series. I know it might you okay. We could always say that they didn't have Kane Williamson at the time because he's out injured with a broken hand. But again, India didn't have Kohli, so balance out. Then you start at zero. India didn't have Kohli, but I don't know. They played really well. They recovered really well. New Zealand again is shocking me surprisingly. I still don't know how New Zealand lost that final, man. I honestly don't know how they lost that final. It just I was looking at the game. I'm like, no, New Zealand gonna come back. I was like, no, this is ridiculous. I just didn't understand how they lose the final to Australia, but David Warner just, I don't know.
I,
He's
you know,
good.
I don't know if you remember. Remember, there were many years when South Africa used to be the bridesmaids for a lot of these competitions,
Oh,
these
yes.
one-day tournaments and everything else, and
Yes.
you kept wondering, but how come they can't seem to win anything, but they always perform well during the preliminaries and the knockout stages, and then when it comes down to the final bag and somebody knocked them out. More often than not, it would have been Australia as well too. So for me, I think New Zealand suffers from a little bit of that same kind of mental block. When they get to that level, they haven't yet found what it takes because the way the game started, all the way through up until I would think Warner started to bat,
Mm.
and I would even say Sodi. Sodi overs changed the entire complexion of the match. But
Yeah.
New Zealand were masters at capitalizing on the weaknesses of the opposition. And the score that they put up was a well-crafted score
Yeah.
because they were against the Kosh for the most part of the innings.
Yeah.
And they
Because
were
remember,
able to,
after 10 overs, they had literally nothing.
yeah, yeah. And
They
then
had
you
nothing.
you work so hard, you put up a very competitive total. You got to be able to find what it takes, that concentration for the next 20 overs to make sure that you don't give Australia what they want now to be able to put you out. But this is not the first time they've done so. They seem to have a little mental block. And unfortunately, outside of Pakistan, they were the team I thought had a good opportunity to win this. I really did not see Australia doing so. However, like with the West Indies, if you've got players like the Warners and such that can produce these innings in a T20 match, then unless you're able to get them early and negate their influence on the game, then you're going to pay. And they were not able to slow down Warner. And congrats to the Aussies. I
Yeah,
really did
and
not see them pulling this one off, but they did so.
I didn't. I
They
did.
did
And
so
you know
quite
what?
something.
What I was saying to earlier, we spoke about earlier, I was like, please, please, please do not let Pakistan one last be when it mattered. Man, how could you one last be when it mattered? It's like take a last early, like in the group stage, like Australia had the last early in the group stage. New Zealand, yeah, they had the last early in the group stage. So take that last early, Ah, I was like, wow. I felt it more for Pakistan. I really felt for New Zealand too, because they fight, but I felt for Pakistan. But you're right when you speak about now about New Zealand, and they do remind me of a lot of South Africa. I remember we used to call them the chokers
Yeah.
because it's like I actually was looking at something with AD de Villiers, and he retired and he spoke about that whereby he said someone the World Cup where they played in South Africa and they did so well, but they couldn't. And Australia beat them. They did so well and they couldn't finish. And I was like, yeah, that is so true. South Africa too. They choke.
Yeah.
They just have this. They just cannot get to finish whatever they started. So they just choke. And same thing with New Zealand. I mean, they were able to win the World Test Championship against India earlier this year, but I don't. But then again, maybe because they were playing it over matter of a couple of days, but I almost lost that too. But lost to England in the World Cup, which again they were winning, and lost to England in the World Cup 2019, and then now losing to South Africa in this World Cup. I don't know. I'm really hoping that they show up
can
better
regroup
next year, in Australia.
The thing is, in addition, what I thought with Pakistan, I didn't feel it as much because Pakistan's loss was the loss of the coin. I mean, the toss.
Yeah.
They.
But they said that. He
Yeah.
said that. The captain said that. He said, yeah. He said the last match when they lost the coin toss.
Yes, I think Australia took them out of their comfort zone
Mhm.
immediately by sending them into bat, and them now not necessarily, like you said, having lost in the preliminary rounds, not having been put in such a set, and not having their way,
Yeah.
During the match for long periods, they were not able to fully control their batting performance, and then at the end of the day, they couldn't. The total that they put up was not enough. So I felt it for them, but when they lost the toss and were sent into bat, I kind of knew that Australia had psychologically won the first battle. And
Because
unfortunately,
even if they had won the toss, right, just by them winning the toss and knowing that they control the game from that, even if they batted first or chase, it was the same thing. Because even if they won the toss and bat first, right, they would have been like, okay, we bat first, we know, we put it up like 190. But having to know that they didn't win the toss, and now they're better at chasing, but now the two things, you didn't win the toss one, and now you're better at chasing, and then they send you into that. Yeah. Australia played that. They played that game really well. They played that head game really, really well, and it was really one with that.
That's what they're known for. Give them credit. That's what they're known for. They've always known to be very cerebral. Yeah.
They're very good with that. They tell you things on the field. They would run around. They would do anything. They play a lot of head games. They play a lot of head games, man. When they play cricket, a lot of head games.
Really. Kudos to them, though. They're the reigning champions. So let's see how they kick on from there. Just a bit of a side note in terms of cricket. The most trending bit of news out of England is the racism scandal, where one of the English, I guess, lower league players came out and gave a full-length whistleblower type interview on the culture within English cricket. Even Tino Bess had commented on it to a certain extent too. But it was not a very flattering picture of the English cricket authorities and the English game. It showed a very ugly underside, name calling, preferential treatment, differential treatment. Some players subject to behaviors that would interfere with their religious beliefs, such as being forced to drink alcohol, um, and it's a bit of a funny scenario because Joe Root actually was, even though he was exposed to it, he was not actually identified as one being involved in it, and he's the English captain, but he was not vocal in saying, no, that's not the way we should do things. And on the back of having, what, 2 years of BLM and taking a knee and all this type of thing, you would think that there's a bit more awareness, you know, to these circumstances. But it almost seems as if they, you know, you have a scar, you put the plaster on it. The plaster itself is not enough to help it heal. You need to put some kind of ointment.
Yeah.
So you pull it back the first time, you realize that you need ointment, but you ain't put no ointment. You just clean it and put back on the plaster again. So now you pull back on the plaster again and realize that nothing was really done in terms of healing. You say, oh, we had a cut there, but you fix the cut. But the cut was always there. The wound was always there. It's just, you got to be a little bit more proactive about how you're managing it, especially with the sport and media becoming so much more intrusive now into the personal lives of players, and every little thing you say being caught on camera or dissected in social media and otherwise. So in terms of how you manage these things, I think the model has to change. That's the word. The model and modus operandi in terms of how you manage these things has to change if it is you really want to address the issues. I'm not saying that everybody is responsible, because I'm certain there are many of them that aren't necessarily buying into the actual racist thinking. However, if you're not able to stand up and say wrong is wrong and right is right, then you get categorized alongside those whom are propagating that type of attitude and thinking. And it's kind of unfortunate, but I'm hoping that with this new set of whistleblowing, there will be some further changes, because everything is not going to happen overnight, but there'll be some further changes.
It was just strange to hear that, because, okay, like Muslims to me have been around like English cricket for some time. Like they've had Muslim captain, you know, he was their captain and he was Muslim, you know. So I'd be like, wow, you know. So it was just kind of shocking to hear that, and to hear his, you know, I listened to his week out on BBC, and it was like, wow. I'm not like 100% surprised, but it was still kind of shocking, because you'll be like, wait, this is cricket. This ain't like some like that or some other sport, sport. You know, this is cricket, whereby, you know, English cricket goes down so many leagues, Premier all the way down. You have almost 10 leagues of cricket, you know, schoolboy cricket coming up. So to find out that this is so deeply rooted. Well, anyway, let's hope that they really do something about it, because, you know, the world will be looking, because they are basically, quote unquote, the managers of the game. Yeah, so let's hope that they do something about it.
Yeah. Hopefully. Brief rundowns on the other sports. I have NBA, where the league leaders currently are the Golden State Warriors on the West. They have a 14-2 record, and Brooklyn Nets expectedly so in the East. They're managing to rack up some wins. At this current point, the same LA Lakers, the big brand, they may not make it into the playoffs if it was to start today, because they're in 9th position.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising to, you know, see LA in that. But I guess, well, LeBron is out, but it seems to be Kyrie Irving is out, and Brooklyn don't seem to be doing so bad, you know.
Kyrie Irving out, and their big men really aren't performing. LaMarcus Aldridge and
Yeah.
Blake Griffin, they really aren't performing. So in truth, I would have expected Brooklyn to be where LA is, but then in truth, the West is a lot more competitive now because
Oh, yeah.
the semifinalists from last year, Western Conference semifinalists, are the league, well, with the exception of Golden State Warriors, are the ones that are leading the West right now. Phoenix Suns, followed by Utah Jazz. Denver's still in there. The usual suspects still in there. So it's a lot more competitive. But as you said, LA is LA. You've got Westbrook and AJ, Anthony Davis, sorry. You're supposed to be producing results, and we're not accepting any excuses otherwise.
Thing is actually at the point where they were 2 seasons ago, like 3 seasons ago, which is actually frightening. Warriors. It's almost like, wow, these guys almost look like they want to repeat.
Yeah, they want to wiping everybody off the floor right now. Steph is on a tear right now, and he probably could break records if he continues. And undoubtedly right now the MVP of the league at this point in time. Lewis Hamilton won again today. He's still trailing in the championship, but he has 2 more races, one in Abu Dhabi and one other, but that's in December, in order to overtake Max Verstappen, who he's trailing by 8 points. But as I said, again, he's still in the battle for the championship.
And I see doing it. I mean, he again is I don't know. He performs at a level that is above anybody close to him. You know, even though Max passed him because he crashed 2 races back, and then but he consistently comes out and performs. He gets points deducted. He just come out and he just go on the track and he just performs. He starts in 10th place, end up in 1st place. Get points deducted, still ends up in 1st place. So I don't know. They just have some guys who just right now
have what it takes.
Have what it takes, and he the prime, and he actually is doing what he didn't pay to do. Just going out and racing, and winning. And I actually do think he might pull it off because I think he has a fighting character that I think has the closer. If he wins again and he's 1 point behind Max, the last race he's gonna beat him because he has that fighting character that push him past the line.
I actually thinking he will overtake Max before the end of the year. Perhaps what could be his final.
Actually, he might actually beat him. Yeah, he might actually catch him in this next race coming up. In Abu Dhabi, he might actually catch him and pass him in this next race. He probably just come out, do something. If he gets P1 and Max get P2, or even if he gets P2 and he's right next to Max, he's gonna pass Max and beat him.
Righty. NFL, I'm not going to go into that today. We'll try and prioritize that next week. And then I also was able to finally get some sort of feedback from our current FA here. Hopefully I can build on that, and we can have some interview of some kind with some member of the FA to sort of update persons, because there's been no football played locally. There's a lot of speculation as to why, whether it's the task force, whether it's the FA. And I do think we need a little bit of clarity there, as well as what's happening with St. Kitts football. What's the direction and where are we going? I keep asking this question every week we sit down and we're not getting any answers, unfortunately. So with this, the latest link that I would have mentioned to you earlier today, let's see if there's something coming out of that of real substance, and we will take it from there. We've come to the end of our program. Swift and sweet, lovely as usual, go in. Big news, but at the same time, it's all entertainment, and we all, enjoy it for what it's worth. Hopefully the West Indies can pull off something special for us.
Next time we talk. Yeah. We will say West Indies win.
That's what we're hoping for. And maybe we could get a Manchester United plus an Arsenal win,
That would be nice. That would be a real good weekend.
That'd be a lovely weekend. Until then, take care of yourself. We'd like to thank the listeners for being with us again. And we want to wish everyone a pleasant afternoon right here from the bench meeting.
For real and unbiased sports news and reviews, from cricket to football and everything in between, with in-depth